Hi everyone, this is Ceylon. After attending a Martin Luther King program and learning more about the civil rights movement, I had a lot of questions and decided to ask my grandparents a few. I asked them to make a video answering my questions about their experience growing up during the civil rights movement. I guess it's a good time for you to meet my grandparents.
Hi, my name is Margaret Brooks, and I'm Ceylon Wise's grandmother on his mom's side.
Hello, my name is Michael Brooks, and I'm Ceylon's grandfather.
Born in Baltimore, March the 7th, 1933. And it was during the Depression and the economy was very bad.
My name is Shirley Wise, and I am Ceylon's grandma. And this is my good friend Teddy.
I'm Ceylon Dexter Wise III. I'm Ceylon's grandfather, and I am the third of 5. My grandfather was Ceylon, my father was Ceylon, I'm Ceylon, Ceylon's dad is Ceylon, and Ceylon is Ceylon. So there are 5 of us, and I'm the third one.
I have Teddy with me because he was so excited because he always wanted to go to school. And this is his first chance to come to a classroom. So say hi, Teddy. Wave. Hi.
Question number 1. Who was the president when you were in 3rd grade?
President Roosevelt was president, and he was the one who was president when Japan bombed Pearl Harbor.
The president at that time, during my year as kindergarten and 3rd grade, was President Dwight D. Eisenhower, which was our 34th president.
When I was 9 years old, Dwight D. Eisenhower was president. I remember him because everybody used to call him Ike.
First grade was President Dwight D. Eisenhower.
And during World War II, he was a 5-star general in the Army.
And by the time I was 3rd grade, it was President John F. Kennedy.
The president was John Fitzgerald Kennedy. He was the first president that I remember, and my greatest memory about him was the day that he was assassinated. That was November the 22nd, 1963. I remember it for a couple of reasons. First of all, that was my father's birthday, November the 22nd, and we were actually moving on that day. And I remember we were moving not far, we were moving walking distance from where we were living, and I was walking down the street with a basket of things that we were moving to the new house, and people were hanging out of the windows. They were sticking their heads out of the windows where we were walking down the street, and they were shouting that the president had just been killed. I will remember that all the days of my life and consider him even today one of our greatest presidents.
Question number 2. Where did you live in 3rd grade?
I lived in Jackson, Tennessee, which was a small urban town.
Jackson, North Carolina.
When I was about 9 years old, I was in a city where I grew up in the city of Baltimore, Maryland.
The little town was called, very rural town called Denmark, Tennessee. Very small, just a community of Denmark, Tennessee.
Question number 3. Did you experience segregation?
I did experience segregation, and one of the examples is we had to attend segregated schools. We had separate eating places in restaurants.
Unfortunately, there were some people who thought that some people weren't good enough or as good as they were.
Yet we were good enough to watch their children cook their meals, clean their houses, scrub their floors and walls, wash windows, and do the hard cleaning work.
We had to drink from separate water fountains.
I went to a black school. I live in a black neighborhood. I went to a black church. Most of the stores I went to were run by black people. We had some stores on the corner where there were white couples who ran them. But the mere fact that my whole community was primarily black indicated the segregation that I experienced. It was very seldom that I had any overextended contact with white people until I went to high school.
Another experience of segregation was not being able to sit down and eat with whites at a restaurant. Blacks always had to go to the back, to another room, or you couldn't even eat in that restaurant at all.
And we mostly had to enter public buildings through the back door, not the front door.
You would go downtown to the stores, you know. They would either not let you come in or follow you around like you're gonna steal something.
I was treated unfairly, and that was not a very good experience.
For instance, at the movie theater, whites and blacks were not allowed to sit together. The blacks always sat upstairs, the whites sat downstairs. We used to joke later on that this was the only time that we were ever over the white people that was at the movie.
The kind of houses that we lived in, the kind of stores we went to, the kind of facilities we had were less standard than people who lived in white neighborhoods.
There were 15 of us that lived in a 3-story house. It was my mother and her 3 children, my aunt and her 2 children, another aunt who had 2 children, some uncles.
It was just a way of life. Although we didn't like it, it wasn't a whole lot we could do about it.
However, because we had the love of our family and our church, we were able to grow up just fine.
Question number 4. How is your school different from our schools today?
If you were Black or African American, you were not allowed to go to the same school as children who were not Black or African American. In other words, if they were white, Caucasian, we were not allowed to go to the same schools.
We always got the leftovers from the white kids, such as old school books. After they got the new ones, they were torn and tattered and not up to date. The schools themselves were substandard, most of them with no inside plumbing. We also didn't have the certified teachers, all certified teachers as we should have. So we were considered second-class citizens.
We too didn't have very good facilities. We used to have our recess outside in the street. Now I know that sounds crazy, but we did. Every day at lunchtime, the teachers would go to the end of the street and put up a little barrier on one end of the block and put up a barrier on the other end of the block, and we would literally have recess in the middle of the street. No grass, none of that stuff that you have right now.
So I felt that was very unfair, and I felt that was very unfriendly. And I'm thankful that today that has changed, and people realize that all of us are equal, all of us are the same, all of us are smart, so we all get to go to school together. And I think that is great, and the way that it should be.
Question number 5. Was it hard to make friends?
It was not hard to make friends with white kids because we did not have the opportunity to interact with white children. The only white children we saw, my brothers and sisters and I saw, were the ones on TV. Or we saw them on Saturday when we went to town and crossing the street perhaps. I mean, that was the only time we saw them.
The only whites that I saw was mostly the mailman, the insurance man, and the police. Those were the only ones I ever saw periodically there during that time, during my early part of life growing up.
There was, I remember, a time when I felt I was really treated very, very unfairly. We used to have to walk to school from our house, and we would always see buses, school buses, with kids who went to a school that we could not go to, and sometimes the bus driver would purposely drive into a muddy puddle so that our clothes would be messed up by the time we got to school. And we experienced that quite often. So that stuck with me all these years. And I'm just thankful that now my grandkids do not experience that same kind of thing.
Question number 6. What did you feel like when you found out that Martin Luther King died?
I was a freshman in college and I was in a math class, and it just seemed that my heart had been ripped out because Martin Luther King was so instrumental in making sure that we could have the same rights as everybody.
I was outside and I was devastated. I had a lot of anger.
I was devastated. I thought to myself, oh my God. I felt black people were now doomed. I thought, what are we going to do now? If they killed him, what would happen to us? Because he stood for us.
I was devastated because he was like a part of the family. He was like the person who was speaking for us. And when he was killed, it seemed that our voice was shut up, our voice was silenced.
He was a strong black man who believed in nonviolent ways of taking a stand for the civil rights of his people and other ethnic people. And he had strong faith and spiritual conviction about what he believed and was willing to put it into action and die for it.
And we looked up to him. And now he was dead. It was just devastating.
We were torn between wanting to hurt somebody and just crying. That's how horrible it was.
In Baltimore, when he was killed, we literally had riots. People rioted, they burned stores, they burned up cars, they broke through windows. There was such great anger in America, and that manifested literally in my block. We had to go into our houses and lock the doors, and the National Guard rode up and down the street with jeeps, and the guardsmen had machine guns. It was just a terrible time.
I believe he was a champion for freedom and a role model of integrity, diligence, and determination and faith. And we are beneficiaries of what he died for.
And I'm glad that today we are not afraid of Martin Luther King, but we celebrate what he has done.
Question number 7. Why is it so important to study Black history today?
Kids need to see and know how wrong this was. Segregation. It all began with slavery and continued through segregation and sharecropping, which I endured as a child. Sharecropping is where a family worked very hard on a white owner's farm to earn the owner money. And at the end of the year, the workers were never able to gain anything. The money was earned for him and not for them. They had to continue working for this individual, and it continued on and on and on, year after year. And until this happened in this country until 1969, when it was no longer done. It stopped for me, for my family, in 1968. So that has not been that long ago when you really think about it. And to think that people were treated that way so long, in such a short length of time ago is unimaginable, especially to my grandkids.
Teaching Black history is important because it will create pride and self-esteem in the Black community. But not only that, also it should make Blacks and whites aware of the contributions that were made in making this country great.
They need to know who they are, and they need to know how they got where they are. They need to know the struggles and the sacrifices and all that people had to go through in order for them to have what they have today. And while we still don't have all the equality that we need to have, but we have much more than we had.
I think we should do it because Black history is a part of the fabric of American history, and for too long we have separated it or hidden it. But I think it's a part of our story that should be told, because it is a part of the American history. It's not all of it, but it's certainly a part of it, and you won't know the whole story unless you know that as well. Part of Black history is important because I want people not only to read the history, but I want some of the black Americans, African Americans who are in your class, black African Americans that you know, to be a part of history, so that 50 years later from today, when they have to make a video about what they were doing when they were 9 years old, that somebody will be talking about them because of the contributions that they've made to America.
It's hard to believe all that stuff happened when my grandparents were kids. I'm glad they made it through, and together we can make sure no one has to experience that again. Thank you, grandparents, for sharing your stories, and thank you, friends, for watching.